I would like now to go into the arena of policy constraint, which is the part of the know-how that I try to put in the public domain through It's Not Luck, probably with less success. Look, it's obvious. First step is identify the weakest link, identify the constraint, otherwise you flounder. Stick it hard in your head. The first step is identify the constraint. If you don't know what's the constraint of the situation, you are floundering for sure. If the constraint is a policy, then the second step is to elevate the constraint, which means replace it with a correct policy. And then eliminate the inertia and go back. Eliminating the inertia when we are talking, eliminate the inertia and go back. Eliminating the inertia when we are talking about a policy constraint is not easy at all. Let's face it, every policy that is with us for more than 3 or 4 years, it's not just a policy, it is a behavioral pattern. Changing such policy is actually culture change. Did you ever heard about resistance to change? This is the meaning of the last step now. As a matter of fact, it's not just the last step that all of a sudden we realize that we don't know how to do. It's the first step even. Identify the system constraint when the constraint is a policy. How are you going to do it? Assemble 10 people in the room, ask them, which of our policies is the constraint of the company? How many answers will you get if you have 10 people? Minimum 15. You will identify exactly the erroneous policy. How are you going to persuade anybody else? You will say, I feel it. They feel something different. And no wonder that they feel something different. How to identify the system constraint when the constraint is a policy? Sorry, but there were no tools, no systematic way to do it. That was a huge problem. And when we are coming to elevate the system constraint, how to find the correct policy, once again, we find out we don't have the tools. Let me give you an indication of it. For example, to what extent knowing the problem does not mean that you have the solution? Cost accounting. Every cost accountant knew that cost accounting is pure bullshit. Their problem is what to do instead. Cost accountant knew that cost accounting is pure bullshit. Their problem is what to do instead. And they knew that without financial control, the situation was going to be much, much worse. Or, look on every large company. Centralization, decentralization, centralization, decentralization, centralization. Doesn't work, shuffle the cards. Do a reorganization. Now it's excellent. For half a year, nobody knows where's the toilets. That really helps the performance of the company. Then what happens? The new solution, the centralization, was not good as well. Different undesirable effects, but there are. Okay, let's switch to centralization. Bingo. We just switch one bad policy with another. How lovely. And we are doing it for 70 years or so. How do you find a correct policy for your environment? Resistance to change, how to do smoothly culture change, definitely there was no systematic way. This is what took so long to develop. The thinking processes which enable people to perform these 3 essential steps. To identify the constraint, to elevate it, and to eliminate the inertia so you can continue on. Let me show you what is the meaning of even the first one. I will use here a real example done by a real person. Let me give a little bit credit to the persons that also deserve this credit. This work was done as part of a much larger work. This was done in '92, if I'm not mistaken. The things that bothered us at that time was When you are working with a company, even a whole company, it's a supply chain. So if we work with one link and we do what's good for it, aren't we doing still a local optimum and hurting the whole chain? In order to check it, John Covington, where are you? Please stand up. Thank you. John have organized the check. It was in textile. He organized that it's the same John, of course. We had top guys from DuPont to produce the fiber, and top guys from, I will not mention the companies, from big companies that produce the fabric, and top guys from companies that produce the garments, and top guys from a retail chain that sells the garments. And each one worked on his piece, and what we wanted to find out is if the solutions that are coming, when viewed from the total chain, are good or bad. Thank God it came out to be perfectly matched. In retrospect, no wonder, because if your goal, the goal of a company is to make more money now as well as in the future, you cannot make more money in the future if you'll piss off royally either your clients or your vendors. Which means what is coming out when you look on one company within the chain are almost the same things that will come out if you will look on the total chain. Here is the work done by one of the people that was sent from the retail part of the business. We are dealing here with a company, quite large company. They have very large department stores, over 100 department stores. The person that was doing this work was the head of their distribution. Look on how he describes the situation in his company. The bold letters are his original list of undesirable effects. The thing which is in parentheses is how he describes the situation in his company. The bold letters are his original list of undesirable effects. The thing which is in parentheses is my explanation. Return on investment is too low. My comment is that, but unlike many of their competitors, it was still positive. We are not dealing here with a bad company. We are dealing here with a good company, above average. Inventory turn is very low. That's what he complained. At that time, their inventory turns were roughly 2.4 inventory turns a year. The average of their industry is 2.3. So why do they claim it's very low? Because what they say is, we don't care what is our competitors' inventory turns. We know that our inventory is out of control. So our inventory turns is very low compared to what we should have, which tells you should have rather than to the benchmark. The story behind it is very interesting. To rectify it, the company have taken action, real severe actions. The company installed a comprehensive computer system, over $250 million. Yes, computer systems can cost a bloody fortune, especially when I shouldn't say it, fine. I want to say some nasty remark about IBM, but I wouldn't say it. What was this computer system? They knew that their inventory is out of control. So they have installed a system whereby on the desk of each salesperson in each of their huge department stores, there is a PC, and the salesperson can go to this PC and ask what is the situation about any item that they're dealing with. What the situation means, how much is in the store, how much is in the nearby stores, how much is in from the vendor, and get the answer within less than 2 seconds because the customer is waiting. When you are talking about such a huge department store, alive and kicking in any given point in time, there is more than 1.5 million different items. They call it SKUs. For them, the same cloth in different colors are different items because somehow their customers, which are mainly women, they don't regard a red dress as exactly the same as a blue dress, somehow. Okay? For me, it's the same. Okay? As long as it's white, it's okay. The system was up and running perfectly doing perfectly everything according to the original specs. It's one of the very few cases that I've seen such a lubricated system that was working according to all the specs. Most of the money, by the way, went to clean everything according to the original specs. It's one of the very few cases that I've seen such a lubricated system that was working according to all the specs. Most of the money, by the way, went to clean the data. At that time, they had data accuracy of 99.7%, which is very, very high. It's an excellent company. This work was done about 1 year after the system was up and fully running. There was only one problem with it. The problem was that inventory turns did not change 1 iota. In other words, oops, a chupchik. During this journal course, the president of the company, when it became apparent that the inventory turns didn't change, and he was behind this huge effort to put all this automation in, he was asked to retire. You do such a major mistake, you pay. I wouldn't have. 1992, not a good year to be in the retail in the US, not at all. Stores have high markdowns. When I asked him what is markdowns, it turned out that it's what we call a sale. When a department store is putting a sale, this is a significant markdown. It's not 3% down in price. Okay? When I've asked him, what do you mean high markdowns, he was telling me that almost half of their sales were generated by these sales. And this is high even for an American retail company. Another thing that he was writing is stock rooms, and he's not talking about these huge warehouses. He's talking about the stock rooms in the department stores themselves. Stock rooms and selling floors are overstocked and crowded. And at the same time, he's complaining about stores has out-of-stock situation, and too little. By the way, what they call out-of-stock situation is not what we call in industry out-of-stock situation. Out of stock for us in industry is if an item we have 0 in stock, we call it out of stock. Not for them. They're looking at it in the following way. A consumer found what he wanted. By the way, internally, they call it the half miracle. A consumer found what he wanted, but alas, not in the right size or the right color. Do you understand what is not in the right size? We don't have her size, so we say she wants the wrong size. Okay? And you cannot persuade her to take something else, which means she chose something that she wants, you don't have it, and you cannot persuade her to buy something else. Only then it's called out of stock. Okay? Now, how big it is? They had just then received the results of a huge survey done by one of the big consulting companies in this country. They've done a beautiful work there, really beautiful, because it wasn't so easy to determine if the request for the specific item was really genuine and really sale was lost due to that. Anyhow, and they've done beautiful work there. There are surveys that show that about 40% of the time that the customer found what he wants, the right size or the right color was not in the shop, and a sale was lost. Here is the situation. What is the policy which is the cause for all of it? What is the erroneous policy which is the constraint of the system? Do you understand to what extent we are not equipped to answer this question? Hello? And even if you have a guess, see to what extent you cannot persuade others, and to what extent your guess is blaming a function in the company. The buyers don't know what they're buying. We don't know. The forecasting department is bullshit. Have you noticed? Finger-pointing stuff. Do you understand that as long as we don't have a systematic way that a prudent or less prudent manager can use in order to answer the question, what is the constraint of the situation, we are actually floundering? Yes or no? There is such systematic way. Yes or no? There is such systematic way. I had it before. I wrote the goal. The only problem is that you have to be a little bit insane in order to use that system. It was invented by Newton. All of physics is based on it. It's called effect cause effect. You have to be mentally unstable in order to use the system. I'm not joking. You see, you have to be in love with mental danger. It's like a mountain climber. Ask a mountain climber, why do you risk your life climbing a mountain? What is his answer? Because it's there. Have you noticed this is an illogical answer? He's simply in love with physical danger. In order to use a methods of physics, you have to... We don't know anything about it? Good! I feel good. Well, you have to be a little bit insane, okay? Well, if we are talking about management tools, I'm afraid of such people in management because, let's face it, what is the first rule in management? Be paranoid. What is the second rule in management? Be paranoid. What is the third rule in management? Don't be hysterical. So we had to find a way to answer this unbelievably important question, which is the first question to ask. And if you don't have the answer, you flounder. What is the constraint of the system? If, in cases where the constraint is erroneous policy, a method that reasonable people can, in reasonable time, get a decisive answer. I have shown it in, it's not luck, I've demonstrated it, not on this problem, I've demonstrated, read again chapter 15 and 16, that's where I'm showing exactly how the tree, the logical tree is built, and where is the answer. The first step is to write a list of undesirable effects. This is the first step of this person. Everyone is qualified to do the first step. People are excellent in bitching and moaning. No problem whatsoever. The problems start with the second step. The second step is, and you can read it in the book, look on these undesirable effects and see whether or not your intuition tells you that there is a causality connection, that one of these undesirable effects may be the cause for another one, and then express it perfectly in logic. And here is the process: causality, if then, so that people say, yes, of course, it's common sense. It turns out that we have not been educated to do it. And people who have not learned to do it are not doing if then in terms of causality, but if then also, some association arrows, and what you get is one big mumbo jumbo rather than a logical tree. That's what takes the time to teach. It takes about 2 or 3 days. Big deal. Let me show you. And then there are some more mechanical steps in order to get it. The end result of this effort of doing what is called, in theory of constraints, the current reality tree, is what we call this picture, the current reality tree of the situation. The cause and effect diagram that connects everything together. This is the original work of this person. Sweating connects everything together. This is the original work of this person. Sweating for it for about 3.5 days. But remember, at that 3.5 days, you are learning how to do it. It's the first time that you are doing such a thing at all. Next time that you do it on the subjects that you have intuition, it takes you about 6 hours. Third time that you do it, it takes you about 9 hours because you become more perfectionist. Then you stabilize on around 9 hours. Let me show you what is done here. This is the end result of following step by step the process. These are nice persons that have done it, very, very knowledgeable about this area. But he claimed that he was not in a university ever and so on. He didn't regard himself as a thinker or something like that. Very good manager. 7. The numbers does not have any meaning, by the way, when I'm talking about 7 in this diagram. The only thing is that the numbers does not have any meaning, by the way, when I'm talking about 7 in this diagram. The only thing is that I need it for that when I'm saying I'm reading statement 7, you know which statement I'm reading. For those of you who don't, at the bottom of the page. 7. Common practice in XYZ, his company, is to use individual stores' forecasts to determine quantity purchased by item. Let me tell you what they mean by that. They have to tell their buyers how much to buy. This is based on forecast. Now, this company, it's in the billions. They know everything that there is to know about computer systems for forecasting and so on. Nevertheless, their conclusion is the best forecast that we can get is to go to the shops themselves, which are the closest to their markets, and to ask them. Then in corporates are getting all these individual forecasts. They are aggregating it, doing the smoothing on the aggregation. That's the base for the quantities purchased. Are you with me? And they are doing it even though they are keenly aware of the existence of 8. Individual stores' forecasts are at best an educated guess. You are going to the store and say how much of this you are going to sell, and they say 14, about. What do you want more? An educated guess. Statement number 12. Buyer feels it must be bought and ready for the next season. When I've looked on it, I almost fainted. Do you know what's the meaning of it? I thought, by the way, at the beginning that it's only in their company. Then I find out that it's worldwide. You know that in this business, maybe because 50 years ago the lead time was 6 months or more, probably. Anyhow, now look what is the unavoidable result. If buyer feels it must be bought and ready much ahead of time for the next season, and the quantities that he's buying is based on the forecast, the overall forecast, which in turn is based on the individual store's forecast. And the individual store's forecasts are at best an educated guess. Then the unavoidable result is the total amount of merchandise ordered is not in line with actual consumption. Do you agree? Yes or no? If you notice, once again, this oval, if 12 exists, and 7 exists, and 8 exists, then 6 is unavoidable. If you will omit one of them, if 12 exists, and 7 exists, and 8 exists, then 6 is unavoidable. If you will omit one of them, 6 is not mandatory anymore. If, for example, the buyer is buying only for tomorrow, even though the forecast is lousy, will compensate day by day, 6 is not a must at all. If, for example, the buyer is buying 6 months in advance, based on a forecast, which is based on the store forecast, but the store forecast is very accurate, once again, 6 is not mandatory. Have you noticed? Eliminate any one of these 3 components, 6 is not a conclusion anymore. Is it understood? Yes or no? That's what takes time to teach people to write so precisely. Okay? That from one hand side, the conclusion is a must. You eliminate any one of the components, bingo. It's not. Look, I want to continue on to 14. 14 is a conclusion, supposed to be an unavoidable conclusion of 8, 6, and 13. 6 and 8 we accepted already. 13 we haven't yet. In order to establish 13, I have to start to read from 10. I don't have enough time to teach you how to write trees, but at least I will teach you how to read trees. Okay? 10. In XYZ, this company, it is not an acceptable practice to hold merchandise in the distribution centers. Emphasis on 3-day turns. In these huge warehouses, they were impacted by just-in-time as well, and so on. They've decided to reduce the inventories in the distribution. Their policy at that time is to hold maximum 3 days. At the time that this work was done, they had 3.5 days, and this guy was under tremendous pressure to reach the 3 days level. In the distribution centers, then goods ordered are pushed to the stores regardless of current need. The vendor sends it to this distribution center. Over there, they check if the numbers match the bill, and if the quality is okay, and they do what is called floor ready, which is to put on the right hangers, to put the right labels, because it depends, the labels are different sometimes from store to store, and then what do? They are not allowed to hold it. Can they send it back to the vendor? No. So what is the only alternative? You send it to the store. And if the store doesn't want it, you send it nevertheless. Down your throat. You said 6 months ago that you'll need it. You see, unavoidably. Now look what is happening due to 12 and 11. If buyer feels it must be bought and ready for the next season, and goods ordered are pushed to the stores regardless of current need, then merchandise is ordered and shipped to store level well ahead of actual need. Ordered because of 12, shipped because of 11, well ahead of current need. Unavoidable. To what extent is it existing? Go at the beginning of March to their stores or to any store. The temperature is -10. Okay? You go to the store. What type of clothes you will find in the store? Summer. It's summer, don't you know? The fact that it's -10 doesn't matter. It's summer. Are you with me? Yes or no? Certain definitely exist. No wonder. Now look. If the merchandise is ordered and shipped to store level well ahead of current need, and the total amount is not in line with the consumption, and the split to the stores is based on educated guess that was done 6 months ago, whatever, then what is the unavoidable result? Chances of having the right merchandise in the right place, at the right time, in the right quantities to meet needs is relatively small. Surprise, surprise. Hello. Do you see? Common sense. This was not written by me. This was written by this person. Every word here, without hints. Now look what is happening. If 14 exists, what does it mean? It means that the unavoidable result is XYZ in total, and each of its stores in particular has too much of the wrong inventory and too little of the right inventory. Which means from one hand side, stores has out of stock situation, and at the same time, stores have excess inventory. Are you with me? Yes or no? If you stock situation, and at the same time, stores have excess inventory. Are you with me? Yes or no? If you notice on 16, there is an asterisk. Do you know what this asterisk symbolizes? It symbolizes that at last we reached one of the original undesirable effects. Are you with me? Yes or no? What does it mean? This is a symptom, an unavoidable symptom. If you try to fight the symptom directly without fighting the cause, what will be the result? Frustration. Is it understood? Yes or no? As a matter of fact, the result is cost up, nothing down. Now, if stores have out-of-stock situations, then customers cannot find what they want and are unhappy. When I've asked him why unhappy, he told me, but she cannot find it in her size. Do you think that she leaves the store happy? I said, probably not. What he told me, what I've learned from that was amazing. He claimed, and proved it so rigorously, so nicely, that it's not only the shortages, the out-of-stock situations that leads to 23, to customers cannot find what they want and are unhappy. The excess inventory leads to the same degree, to the same phenomenon. And look how he proved it. If stores has excess inventory, then storerooms and selling floors are overstocked and crowded. Fine? If that's the case, then some merchandise get lost. It doesn't mean stolen. It means what we know so well in industry. We know that in the warehouse we have this part. We know that in the warehouse where they have different items, okay, which is actually what they have. The computer says that in the store. They tell the customer, wait! After half an hour they come back and says, sorry, we cannot find it. What do you think? So the customer is happy? Customer cannot find what he wants and very unhappy. By the way, they do find it 3 weeks later, a little bit too late. Then he claims that there is another channel. At that time I didn't understand it, so I forced him to add here this oval, this banana. It's a mistake. He was right. This shouldn't be here. Only later I found out that he was right, and my daughter told it to me. See, he claims something like that. If storerooms and selling floors are overstocked and crowded, then stores look bad visually and are unpleasant to shop in. That's understood. But he claims that if stores look bad visually and are unpleasant to shop in, then customers cannot find what they want and are unhappy, and I couldn't understand the logical connection. Until my daughter explained to me, she said, Father, don't you realize, if I'm going to the shop and the racks are jam-packed, I'm not going to look because I'm afraid to break a fingernail. Well, I didn't know about it. Anyhow, if customers cannot find what they want and are unhappy, then stores experience low sales. Combine it with 18, with what we said before, that stores have excess inventory, and what is the result? Unavoidably, inventory turns are low. Now look on the right side. If storerooms and selling floors are overstocked and crowded, then customers wait for markdowns. I didn't realize it. After that I checked, he is absolutely right. He claims the following. A woman comes, find what she wants, exactly what she wants. And there are 2 items, she buys it. 30 items, she says, no problem, I will come 2 weeks from now, there will be a sale. In other words, because of this excess inventory, there is huge pressure from the weeks from now, there will be a sale. In other words, because of this excess inventory, there is huge pressure from the customers to do a sale. Combine it with the fact that the stores experience low sales, which means they are afraid that they will not meet their budget sales of this quarter, and with the fact that they have so much excess inventory, the 3 together, what do you have? You have a sale. Okay? In other words, stores have high markdowns. Take this one together with the inventory turn is very low, and the unavoidable result is return investment is too low. Now look on it. If you notice, all the undesirable effects that were on the original list are here as symptoms. Why is it so important to have it? Look on that. Everybody agrees with it. It's common sense. But look on that. Everybody agrees with it. It's common sense. But look, if somebody would have done it, and then, before they've installed the computer system, what do you think now? Will a computer system that tells us exactly where each item is located help to solve this problem? Yes or no? No. So you know very quickly what not to do. Much, much, much better than spending $215 million and 3 years just to find out, oops, it was a chupchik. What is what bothers me? You give an American manager 2 alternatives. Spend $1 million or think for 4 hours. What do you think is a choice? But there is something here much more important. We know exactly now what is a policy constraint. Look on it. Look, for example, if, for example, 7 will be, then 6 is not mandatory anymore. And if 6 is not mandatory, 14 will not be there. And if 14 will not be there, 15 will not be there. And if 15 will not be there, all of it collapses. Are you with me? Yes or no? Is it understood? Now look at the bottom. These are the causes. 7 and 8 are saying your forecast is too bad. Thanks to chaos theory, we have learned that it's theoretically impossible to focus accurately in detail. Theoretically impossible. You see, even 20 years ago, we fooled ourselves that if we had enough sensors and big enough computers, we can forecast the weather. Until Kerr theory proved it wrong. It's theoretically impossible. It's known in the popular terms as a one time like that rather than like that. This can cause 2 months down the road a hurricane in Florida. Okay? Which means kiss goodbye accurate forecast. You proved it to yourself. Anybody here believes in the forecast? You proved it over and over. Okay, at least we have a theoretical proof that it's impossible, theoretically. This does not mean that we cannot do a thing. Because look, if 12 will be eliminated, 13 and 16 will be, and 6 will be eliminated. And you see, once again, the whole thing collapses. But look now on 12. What is written in 12? Buyer feels he must be bought and ready for the next season. This is not a rule of nature. This is a policy. Am I right? Yes or no? What about 10? If we will eliminate 10, 11 will be eliminated, and then 13, and then 14, and then an acceptable practice to hold merchandise in the distribution centers. This is a policy, not act of God. Which means what is this analysis tells us? You have a choice here. Either you eliminate 10, this policy has to be replaced, or you eliminate 12, this policy has to be replaced. You don't have to replace them both. Are you with me? One will be enough. And remember, what the TOC is against change. I'll repeat it again. TOC is against change. TOC is for improvement. Every improvement is a change. Not every change is an improvement. We are talking about minimum change that will result maximum benefits. Here is a typical case. You don't have to change these two policies. Minimum change that will result maximum benefits. Here is a typical case. You don't have to change these two policies. One is enough to change. And then the whole tree collapses. In other words, either you change the policy described in 10, or you change the policy described in 12, or you are pissing in the wind. Hello. Do you understand why it's so important to give such tools in the hand of top management? Not only that they can find what is a constraint, they can prove it to everybody else in the company. In It's Not Luck, I am showing the entire thinking processes. The current reality tree, which is needed in order to identify the constraint. The evaporating cloud and the future reality tree, which are needed to overcome the inertia, to introduce this change in such a way that rather than resistance to change, you will encounter the enthusiasm of people finding out, at last we are making something that makes sense rather than all this mumbo-jumbo. In It's Not Luck, I have shown the application of these thinking processes to two most common policy constraints. One is marketing. Our market is our constraint. We cannot sell more. I found out there is no market constraint. There is a marketing policy constraint. Okay? And how do you construct a way to get your market? Why is it some improvement? You are talking about a short life improvement. Let me prove to you why. Your objective, and I know it because otherwise you wouldn't have been here, your objective is to put your company on a process of ongoing improvement. There are two mandatory necessary conditions to do it. Look on it. In order to put a company on a process of ongoing improvement, you must induce people to improve. You cannot do it single-handed. Am I right? Tell me. At the same time, there is another necessary condition that you must satisfy. In order to put your company on a process of ongoing improvement, you must convert local improvements into bottom line results. Otherwise, you haven't improved at all. Third, local improvements into bottom line results. Otherwise, you haven't improved at all. You are just on ego trip. Where is the conflict? In order to induce people to improve, you must not even think of laying off people who contributed to the improvement. What will happen when you lay off people because they've contributed and now you can afford to lay them off? What will happen with the people that you haven't laid them off yet? You can kiss goodbye process of ongoing improvement. As a matter of fact, you will start to get another process of ongoing sabotage. People will make sure that you cannot afford to lay them out of work. Am I right? Yes or no? Now look on the other one. In order to convert local improvements into bottom line result, you must lay off people in the departments that have improved. You cannot afford to lay them out of work. Am I right? Yes or no? Now look on the other one. In order to convert local improvements into bottom line result, you must lay off people in the departments that have improved the most. That's where most of the excess manpower will result. Have you noticed a small conflict? And you can say, you know what, first of all, let's improve, and then we'll deal with it. Bulls. Every one of your employees, your companies, is keenly aware of this cloud. Everybody's afraid to improve himself out of a job. As long as you don't break this cloud totally, you cannot induce them to improve. And there is a way to break it. You know where is assumptions that we don't like. Our intuition does tell it to us. Which arrow we feel most uncomfortable with. In order to convert local improvements into bottom line, put them into another useful work, which means the assumption is the market is limited. Are you with me? Yes or no? You must guide the improvements so that you will be able to increase your markets. And here is where I have the biggest criticism on TQM and just-in-time. They said it, but they haven't hammered it enough in companies. I'm coming to a company and they have an improvement program. They improve quality. Bless them. Where does it improve the quality? Let's say in production. I said beautiful. Then I'm saying, do you have in marketing, show me in marketing the plan, how they are going to take this improvement in quality and use it effectively, reliably to increase sales. No such program. How you prove automatically your market will grow? Hello. We have an improvement program to reduce cycle times in production. God bless you. We have decreased our cycle time from 45 days to 15 days. Beautiful. How much sales have increased? Nothing. Where is the marketing program to take advantage of this huge improvement so the market will grow? Turns out that people don't know what is marketing, you know? Yes, turned out that people don't know what is marketing. They're confused between marketing and sales. It's amazing. Let me tell you what is my definition of marketing. Marketing means spread the corn for the ducks to come. Sales mean take a gun and shoot a sitting duck. And if a gun and shoot a sitting duck. And if the duck is not sitting but behaving like a crazy mosquito, you don't have marketing. Now, what is marketing? Marketing is not just advertisement, far from it. Let me go to the basics, and let me show you what I mean in marketing. Even though you are in production inventory control, let's understand one thing. will improve production, and marketing sales will not increase sales. You just increase the pressure of cutting your people. Are you with me? Yes or no? Hello? Good. Let me talk about some trivialities in marketing. Not mistaken. His perception of value is according to his investment in the product. Investment in design, production, distribution, marketing, etc. The higher the investment, he thinks that the higher the value. Am I right? Yes or no? Hello? In other words, the perception is that there is one fair price. What is a one fair price? It's the cost plus some reasonable margin. What is reasonable margin? Depends on how greedy you are. But if they give you much more than that, of course you take the money, but you feel a little bit uncomfortable. If they give you less than that, you start to bitch and moan about unfair competition. Am I right? Yes or no? This perception of value exists beautifully. But if I'm not mistaken, there is another perception of value to the same product at the same time. The perception of value of your customers. And if I'm not mistaken, the customer, same product at the same time. The perception of value of your customers. And if I'm not mistaken, the customer perception of value is according to the benefits he, she expects from acquiring your product. Am I right? Yes or no? Wait a minute. The benefits expected from acquiring your product is a function not of your cost, but is a function of the needs of this particular customer. Do you agree with me that different customers have different needs and therefore different perception of value? So for the same product, there is the supplier perception of value, which gives one value, and there is the customer which gives one value, and there is the customer is to do market surveys. Okay? You get what you knew before. About. Look why I claim that we can know the shape of the graph now. I claim that we know the following. We know, for example, this point. We know that there is zero prospects who thinks that the value of your product is zero. Why do I claim it? Because a person that thinks that the value of your product is zero is definitely not your prospect. Am I right? Fine. We also know one thing, that if we go to very high values, I don't believe that we'll find many prospects that think that the value of your product is $10 billion, that you are alive. Which means we know that there is non-0% who think that the value of your product is something positive. Otherwise, nobody would have bought. Which means, what do we know? We know that this graph starts from zero, climb to some positive value, and then decay back to zero. Am I right? Yes or no? And this we know without making any survey. Now, look what happens when we'll put one price, no matter what the price that you have decided, by regular cost accounting or by the greatest bullshit ever called activity-based costing, that just causes you to work much more to get another wrong answer. Suppose that here is your price. I claim that by that you have dissected your current market into three. First piece is this one. What is this piece? This is people which have higher perception of value for your product than what you ask for. This means these are prospects who are willing to pay more. Don't worry, they will not volunteer to pay more. Okay? The other portion, I believe, is dissected by some gray line. Who knows where it is? Let's suppose it's here. That really breaks it into two. This section is
prospects that their perception of value is so low relative to your required price that they simply do not buy. And this portion is prospects that buy but bitch and moan that you are too expensive. Have you noticed something very interesting? Never mind where is your price. Your salespeople will come back and will say that a big percentage of the market claims that you are too expensive. Hello. Do you have complaints that you are too expensive? Doesn't matter. If we accept that, I think that we have defined the role of marketing. And if your marketing is not doing it, then you don't have marketing, you have only a marketing department. Look what is the unavoidable result of that. It means that if we believe in what we said so far, what is the role of marketing? One thing is to push all this graph to the right. Correct? That's marketing job. Another thing, if this is not enough, is to segment the market. Now listen to me carefully. Segment the market does not mean look for niches. Segment the market means realizing that even when you are looking at all, it's this graph. And segmenting the market means taking actions by yourself that dissect what is seen to be a uniform market in such a way that these people that have high perception of value due to their needs will pay much higher price than these people that have a much lower perception of value due to the fact that they have different needs. And when this person talks to this person, he will say, no wonder that you paid much less. What you have bought does not satisfy my needs. And marketing must come with a feasible way to do it. Let me show you an example of what I mean. I will take example of somebody who invented it a long time ago. This person died probably a long time ago. This person died probably a long time ago. The companies are still doing it. They don't understand at all what they've done, so they segmented themselves almost to death. Because if you take something without understanding and pushing it too far, it starts to work against you. I'm talking about the airline companies. And let me show you how they've segmented. For example, I'm going in Tel Aviv to buy a ticket to New York and back. And I'm going to the agency and I'm asking, how much will it cost me to go to New York and back? And they say, for how long are you going to stay in New York? My tendency is to tell them, none of your business. Wait a minute, it's really none of their business. If I'm going to stay 1 week or 3 weeks, do you think that they're going to give me different aeroplanes? They're going to put different stewardesses on the airplanes? They're going to, wait a minute, it's really none of their business. If I'm going to stay 1 week or 3 weeks, do you think that they're going to give me different aeroplanes? They're going to put different stewardesses on the airplanes? They're going to use different fuel? What the hell is their concern if it's 1 week or 3 weeks? Never mind, they demand to know. And then something amazing happened. If I said 2 weeks, the price is $800. If I say 3 days, the price is $1,600. Double. Why? They do it very nicely. Look, if I have to go from Tel Aviv to New York and come back in 3 days, it means I have a big need to be in New York. You have big need? Pay. And I'm paying through my nose. Why do I say they segmented themselves to death? They have now so many prices. Go on every aeroplane here in the States. Ask the people near. They have now so many prices. Go on every aeroplane here in the States. Ask the people near you to ask them how much they have paid. Show me another person who paid the same thing. They have lost control totally. They don't know what they're doing at all. That's craziness what's happening there. But the concept of segmentation is there. Look what's the meaning here. Realizing that different clients have different needs. And you have to tailor your product, your offer, even if it's exactly the same product, in such a way that the prices will be according to satisfying the needs of the client. For example, let me give you an example about lead time, something that most of the TOC companies today are doing at last. All you and your competitors are all in 6 weeks lead time, suppose. You succeed to reduce your lead time to 1 week. I'm not talking about nonsense. You will hear such stories here over and over. With the answer, go fly something. Don't do it in this way. You do it in the following way. Say 6 weeks, and I'm extremely reliable. I will satisfy whatever you want in 6 weeks. If you are in a jam, and you really need something urgent, like delivering in 1 week, I will bail you out. If it's urgent, I'm here to serve you. You can rely on me. I guarantee 1 week. But you have to prove to me that it's urgent. And there is only one way to prove that it's urgent. You don't want to pay more, don't tell me that it's more urgent for you. Forget it. Do you know what? Everybody agrees to it. It's amazing. In other words, realizing that even when you're dealing with the same client, from time to time his needs are changing. Usually 6 weeks is enough. He doesn't want to pay more. Sometimes 1 week is essential. He was willing to pay anything. Why do you give one price? Hello, and so on and so forth. The question starts, how do you find how to push this graph to the right and segment the market in a systematic way? The solution tailored to your environment, your capabilities, your clients, the culture that is in the relationship between you and your competitors and the market. How do you tailor such a thing? And it turns out that there is a systematic way to get the answers. Very easy to be done. Let me show you the logic behind it. So I will start with some trivial statements, and after that I will ask some innocent questions. First trivial statement. A product that solves customer problems brings... Correct? Of course. Another trivial statement. The more problems the product solves, and the more severe problems the product solves, the higher the customer perception of value of this product if he is just aware of it. Am I right? If he's just aware of it. Add this word to this slide. Now let me ask you some innocent questions. What process is suitable for finding the cause of many problems? Are you aware at all about the process that its starting point is many problems, and its end result is, okay, here's one thing that's responsible to them all? Are you aware of such a method? Yes, you are. It's called current reality tree. Another question. The customer knows his undesirable effects. But does your customer know this core problem? Which means the answer here is no. Now take these two answers. What is the unavoidable conclusion? Where should we start? Not by surveys. You know the undesirable effects of your customer without any surveys. And if you don't, go and talk with 2 of them. They love to bitch and moan. Don't worry. Okay? And you don't get them all, that's fine. It's enough. The first point is, take the undesirable effect of your market and build the current reality tree of your market. And find what is in the bottom, which is a policy of you and your competitors together that cause these undesirable effects to your market. And there is such a policy, because otherwise they would not have bitched and moaned to you. Are you with me, yes or no? Because otherwise they would not have bitched and moaned to you. Are you with me, yes or no? You do that. Now you know, if I will change this policy, and I can cause the client to get rid of this undesirable effect, I have a mafia offer for him. You know what the meaning of a mafia offer. offers so good that it cannot refuse. How to do it exactly, I've described, and it's not luck, in 3 totally different situations. When you are in the market where you are selling to the end consumer, when you're in the market where you are selling raw materials to another link in a production chain, when you're in the market that you're selling resources, machines, to another link in the chain. The biggest differences in the market that I can imagine even. Each one of the stories which is in its not luck is the biggest differences in the market that I can imagine even. Each one of the stories which is in its not luck is based on real case. The only difference is that the results in reality were much more than what I put in the book. Also, there is enough videotapes with testimonials today of companies who have gone through this process and developed a Mafia offer, and what are the results. The amazing thing is, until now, we haven't seen yet the same answer coming twice. Not even a single case. Everyone comes with a beautiful solution out of it, but different than anybody else that was done before. Probably that's the nature of marketing, and that's the nature of competition. This is essential to be done. Essential. Otherwise, the constraint will move into the market, which means a cloud that threatens people to be punished for their improvement. We start to dawn on the company. Everything starts to go in reverse. More than that, in production they find out, why the hell do we continue to improve? These bastards in marketing are not taking any advantage of it, so why should we continue to do this nonsense? And that's what they say. By the way, with more fierce words that I've used here. Another thing that I've demonstrated the thinking process on is another constraint, that if you embark on a real process of ongoing improvement, and you get better and better and better and better, real better and better, it's just a matter of time until the constraint will be human relationships in the organization. There is less and less and less slack, things become more and more tight together, and then the human relationships start to be the friction that blocks and dictates the improvement. And at last, in the last 5 years, people start to pay attention to it. And they start even to talk about the real subjects. We have to improve communication in the company. We have to improve empowerment. We have to improve teamwork. It's essential, otherwise that's what will block things. My only problem is that when I'm looking on what is done under the title of better communication or better empowerment and so on, I start to become really mad. You know, for example, there are consulting companies out there. How do you do better team building? They take people for 4 days into the desert. Into the desert. I, as an Israeli, spent a little bit more than 4 days in the desert. No team building is coming out of it. Start to deal with the core problems. They are dealing with the symptoms. And in such a crooked way that maximum you get some lip service, some temporary relief, and then you get everything back. I want to show you an example of what is a core problem, for example, that blocks communication. I've tried to show it in its not luck. And you know, I've used what I thought is the most difficult subject of communication. You know what is more difficult, with whom it's more difficult to communicate than with your boss or your peers or your wife? It's communicating with teenagers. I have demonstrated the processes that have come, distilled out of the thinking processes for communication and so on. In It's Not Luck, I've demonstrated it for niceties. No! The whole processes, the whole answers of what came from the thinking processes are there. Let me show you, for example, when I'm talking about communication. When I've done the analysis, I've built the whole counter-reality tree, I found out, to my amazement, that there are 2 separate core problems that blocks communication in the company. when I've looked better onto the tree, I found out that actually we are dealing with two different channels of communication in the company. One is a vertical channel, the communication between you and your peers, or one level up or down. The other one is the vertical channel, the communication from the president down. The first one is blocked by one core problem, which is the tendency of people to look for compromises, even in conflicts that do not have a compromise. Of this, please read chapter 2 of It's Not Luck again and again. Over there is exactly how to solve it. Chapter 2 of It's Not Luck again and again. Over there is exactly how to solve it. Another one with a vertical one, I want to show you here the tree behind what is written in chapter 7 and 8 of It's Not Luck. What blocks vertical communication? We call it, half-baked solution. Do you know what's a half-baked solution? Half-baked solution is your boss idea. When you say, oh shit. Half-baked solution is your lieutenant idea when you say, let me think about it. And then, of course, you don't think about it, and he comes back, and then you shoot from the hip. And let me tell you, since John Wayne have died, usually when you shoot from the hip, you hit, first of all, your own foot. Or your peer idea, when you answer, do you know what, let's bring it to the committee. This is what, usually when you shoot from the hip, you hit, first of all, your own foot. Or your peer idea, when you answer, do you know what, let's bring it to the committee. This is what's called half-baked solution, and this ruins the communication drastically. Okay? Let me show you what is really the core problem there. Look on this tree. I will start from the bottom, from 1. Usually, an inventor, the one who comes with the idea. An inventor of a solution tends to concentrate on the negative it eliminates and the additional positives it provides. Am I right? Yes or no? That's human nature. What is the unavoidable result? If usually an inventor of a solution tends to concentrate on the negative it eliminates and the additional positive it provides, then an inventor is expecting his solution to be praised by people, expecting his solution to be praised by people who currently suffer from the negative it eliminates, and even more so by the people who also will enjoy the additional positive it provides. Am I right? Yes or no? Hello? Tell me. Yes, of course. By the way, has is not a spelling mistake. I'm sorry. In my internal writings, I'm using has as a replacement for his hair. I'm sick and tired of slashes. Okay? And since English is not my language, I don't have any barriers to invent new words. By the way, I'm using also hem for him hair. So you will find himself and so on. It's very useful. Okay, now let's take it a step further. Look on statement number 4. Most people, when presented with a solution, tend to zoom in but syndrome. Small yes, big but. Do you know it? Now look what happens when 4 exists, and it does exist, while 2 exists at the same time. If an inventor is expecting his solution to be praised by people who currently suffer from the negative it eliminates, and most people, when presented with a solution, tend to zoom in on the potential negative ramifications, then the inventor reacts to criticism as unfair. Correct or not? And he's right. Now, in order to continue on, I have to use statement 7, which I haven't proven yet, so I'm repeating back from the bottom. I will go now from 1 towards the direction of 3. There is another unavoidable ramification of 1. If usually an inventor of a solution tends to concentrate on the negative it eliminates and the additional positive, then many times an inventor is relatively blind to the negative ramifications of his/her solution. He was not thinking about it. All his focus was on the positive. And since this exists, then many times a fresh solution suffers from some non-trivial negative ramifications. He was so captured in the positive, he didn't look sideways. Now look what's happening when I look on the result of 3 and 4 together. I claim that 7 is an unavoidable result. If many times an inventor is relatively blind to the negative ramifications of his/her solution, and most people, when presented with a solution, tend to zoom in immediately on the potential negative ramifications, then many times the inventor is not ready to answer criticism on the spot. He was not thinking about it. Correct? Now take that he was not totally unprepared for that. With his feeling that he reacts to criticism as unfair, and what do you get? Many times the inventor does not really address the criticism. He repeats again, why it's so good? Am I right? Have you seen it in reality over and over? Now look what's happening. Look that 8 is an unavoidable result of 4 and 5. If most people, when presented with a solution, tends to zoom in on the potential negative ramifications, and many times a fresh solution suffers from some non-trivial negative ramifications, then many times people presented with a solution have valid criticism. They are not just saying no for nothing. Now, if that's the case, and you have valid criticism, and the inventor does not address your criticism, he continues to talk about the process, he doesn't look on what you are talking about, what is now your impression? What is the unavoidable result? It's 10. Many, yes or no? Now, 11 exists, by the way, not in Israel, but here in America. People tend to avoid confrontations. In Israel, we strive on confrontations. If people tend to avoid confrontations, and many times people get the impression that the solution is not acceptable and the inventor is obstinate, then many times people presented with the solution answer, let me think about it, or keep their reservation to themselves. Am I right? Especially if it's your boss, or your boss's boss, or your boss's 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 boss. What happened then to the communication? Breaks. And then the loop starts. Now look on it. First of all, have you noticed that without putting it on paper, but trying to hold all this connection in your head, you are getting spaghetti? Why is it so essential to put it in writing correctly? Am I to hold all this connection in your head, you are getting spaghetti? Why is it so essential to put it in writing correctly? Am I right? Yes or no? But the other thing is, we know now what to do if we want communication. There are 2 entry points here. If you want to improve communication vertically, if you want really to get alignment throughout the company, either you eliminate 1 or you eliminate 4. Have you noticed all of it is a result of the combination of these 2? 1 is eliminated by teaching the inventor how to present his solution. This is the major part of the Jonah course, not just how to find the core problem and how to find the solution, but how do you present it? And how do you listen to people when they're coming with criticism, realizing that they're it? And how do you listen to people when they're coming with criticism, realizing that their criticism is the vehicle to improve your solution rather than to kill it? But you don't want many Jonahs in the company. Few are enough. Jonahs, unfortunately, today are like fertilizers. You put some of it and everything grows. You put too many fertilizers in one place and it stinks. You don't need too many Jonahs. So let's eliminate it by 4. Let's teach people how to express their criticism correctly rather than immediately, boom, yes, but. And it turns out that to teach it, how to do it correctly, takes less than 8 hours. This we can do on a grand scale, especially when they get immediately the benefits, because all of a sudden they can go, or vice versa, to their lieutenant. And they do it once and they see how well it's working, and then they will do it twice, and then they become a habit. Big deal. But if you don't do that, and instead you put computers to make information flow, and you think that by that you'll get the communications, you are fooling yourself. Hello. Here's a partial answer. Partial. You're right as well. We need information, but this is much more important. Look, we've analyzed all this field thoroughly. See, when I started, I'm a physicist. I became a scheduler, and then a production expert, and then cost accountant, and then marketing. I never thought that I would become a psychiatrist. Okay? But sorry, this is part of the equation. We are dealing here with human beings, not with machines. Turned out that in order almost all the human problems, there are 5 very quick to learn techniques. 2 of them that deals with the communication, 2 of them that deals with empowerment and delegation, and 1 of them that deals with team building. Unbelievably simple, unbelievably powerful, based on total common sense. Let's, for heaven's sake, teach our people to do it rather than continue just to talk about empowerment and communication and not really addressing the core problem. Because before long, if we don't address the core problems, this word will become lip service, and then nobody will want to hear about it anymore. And it's essential to improve communication and empowerment and teamwork. I gave some examples, and it's not luck. All of this field is called management skills. So if you ask me, what is theory of constraints? In my eyes, right now, the 3 major sections of theory of constraints are the following. 1 is the logistical applications. In production, totally different. In distribution, the logistical solution for distribution I've released in the public domain. It's chapter 6 of It's Not Luck. It's the equivalent of the entire goal. Okay? So read chapter 6 with magnifying glass. Every word counts there. And project management. The logistical of project management is essential for 2 things. 1 is the development of new products. The other one is building the expansions in the company. This is logistical problems. The applications are generic, like the drum buffer, open buffer management in production. There is a generic of theory of constraint. In what way is it the heart? You can derive everything else from the thinking processes, even though some of the applications were derived before the thinking processes. But then you need somebody with a phenomenal intuition to do it for you. Today, these applications can be derived systematically by almost any person from the thinking processes. There is no point to derive them again. The thinking processes are the things that you must have for cases where nobody has done the work before you, or there is no generic answer. For example, all the marketing area, there is no generic answer. You can get your answer directly from the thinking processes, but there is no intermediate generic answer. Another thing will be, for example, how should I treat my suppliers? Turned out, once again, you must use the thinking processes because it's once again depending on the history. Turned out, once again, you must use the thinking processes because it's once again depending on the history and the current reality, and the answers are different. Okay? There are enough subjects that you have to go back and use directly the thinking process. You will see some of the presentations here talking about it. For example, these gorgeous people from the Air Force in their medical system didn't have anything before that. They had to invent, to derive everything directly from the thinking processes. I believe that some of the applications now are generic enough for the medical organizations, so others can more adapt it rather than redevelop it. Okay, but somebody had to do it first. The third part, which I became more and more convinced how unbelievably important it is the management skills. By the way, when Lisa talked about TLC for education, this is what I find out that kids of age of 6, 7, 8 learning it much faster than we are. We have to unlearn. They don't. for them, if then, is the natural connection. You know the why period? It's the natural connection. Then our education system ruined it. We are part of the education system. Look on your own kids. When they came with you with a why, and if you were in good mood, you answered it. And then immediately, what is the next question? And why that? And then what is the usual reaction? At least in my case, it was go to your mother. Real answer. Or sometimes I say, when you will grow, you will know. Every time that I said it, I had the courage to go back and check whether I know the answer. In every single case, I didn't know the answer. So what have I done? I cheated my kids? No, I told them correctly. When you will grow, you will know. Courage to go back and check whether I know the answer. In every single case, I didn't know the answer. So what have I done? I cheated my kids? No, I told them correctly. When you will grow, you will know. You will know not to ask such questions. The education system will kill every thinking and you'll find. Management skills is essential for organizations, no matter how big or small they are, including organizations called husband and wife and kids. And everyone that is doing it and done it is testifying to it. The amazing thing is, the simplest and the fastest to learn and apply is exactly the management skills. By far simpler than anything that you've read in the Go. By far. This is for me TLC. See, I promised you simple things. Now understand what I mean by simple things. Let me talk about the core problem that blocks the spreading of TLC today. TLC is based on a phenomenal paradigm shift. It's based on, for any situation whatsoever, there is a win-win-win-win-win solution that it's in your power to find and implement. This is a phenomenal paradigm shift of what we have been taught to believe. That's the difficulty in going on TLC. If you notice in the Go, Alex found himself in an impossible situation. He didn't come out of it by a miracle. There wasn't any rich uncle that died and because of it he went out of the mud. He was getting out by using just common sense. Common sense. There was nothing miraculously that happened. And it's not like I'm showing it on a much larger scale. And look, in every one of these situations, anybody was hurt, anybody, shareholders, top management, Alex himself, his people, the employees, the customers, nobody. It's perfect win-win solutions. It's in your power to find them, it's in your power to implement them if you just use the gift that God has gave us. Phenomenal gift, our own brains. Do I have a proof that for any situation it's possible? No, only empirical or theological. I do believe in God, but I don't believe that God has created evil world. And I believe that God has given us the freedom to choose. The freedom to choose to make a better world or the freedom. Thank you very much.